Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to another video. In this video, I have a special guest. His name is Justin Allison. Justin has been into recruiting field for more than 10 years now. Justin and I met in one of the LinkedIn event. He organized this LinkedIn event in Chico where more than 300-400 people showed up, and that's how I connected with him. We built a relationship and I was able to get him on my Instagram live session. In this session, we talk about several things, including how to network on LinkedIn, how to talk to recruiters once you are connected with hiring managers, what do you say to them, character versus talent, hard work versus talent, and a lot more from recruiter's perspective, as he has been recruiter and he's been on the other side of the table. Justin, if you're watching this, thank you so much for doing this. It's going to provide a lot of value to my audience. I just know it. And if you want to talk to Justin or connect with him on LinkedIn, I will leave both his LinkedIn profile and Instagram profile links in the description. Go connect with him, go follow him on Instagram. I hope you enjoy this conversation and find it valuable. Don't just listen to this conversation, but try to implement this in your real life. Now I will let you enjoy the conversation.
Yo!
Hey, great morning, my man. How we
I'm
doing?
good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Just grateful for another day, another at bat, man.
Yes,
To
yes. I was
show up
so,
during these crazy times that we're all in.
yeah, yeah. I was very surprised when you said you also wake up at 4, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh my God, you're one more person I know who wake up at 4 like me. So I'm not
yeah, man.
crazy.
No, you're not crazy at all. And if anything, you're ahead of the game there, man. I just, a long time ago, I learned one of the easiest ways, which I say easy lightly, to get ahead is to wake up early and get your day started before other people get started. Get grinding, get working before everyone else is working. So when I was early in my career as a recruiter, that's
Yeah.
what that was one of the things that propelled me to early success. Like, hey, I can get 2 hours of work in before anyone else is working in my industry, my space, etc. And it's like get a huge jump start on the day. So it's just kind of carried on and developed into a pretty regimented morning routine. So
Yep, yep,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I know. I always, when I wake up early, like 4, I feel like I'm already ahead of everybody. And I'm like,
yeah,
and I have so much time and nobody's like, it's like a feeling of accomplishment. Like everyone
yeah,
is sleeping and you're like, you are already beating everybody.
yeah. No,
So
that's
Justin,
exactly right.
for people who don't know, let's do a quick intro.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I guess quick origin story professionally on me is I've been in recruiting for 18 years, give or take. Not really keeping track anymore. It's been so long. Um, Focused heavily on in healthcare throughout my career, primarily. However, I've also done a lot of internal recruiting, right, as building and growing teams. So that's definitely an independent type of recruitment versus healthcare staffing, which is what I do kind of on the day-to-day grind. And so been doing that for a very, very long time. And, it's been a great, I guess, environment to grow a career and to really just to develop personally and professionally.
so a lot of my audience is international students, and one big thing we struggle is like how to network, because I think that's what I want to focus on, and I know a lot of it is personal branding, how to get a job basically in
Sure.
general. So I want to focus on like personal branding. What according to you is a personal branding?
Yeah, well, and I first, great question. And I just, as a side note context, I want to give you acknowledge and give some props from when we did for your YouTube channel and we posted some content on LinkedIn. I still like every week, not daily anymore, but every week I'm getting connection requests and people saying, "Hey, we watched your content with Yudi and it was so helpful and thank you so
Yeah,
much," and asking questions. So I think that's kind of a good start, right? Is it engaging the
yeah,
online communities, right? I
right.
think there is incredible opportunity, back to your question, incredible opportunity to build your personal brand right online right now, especially with LinkedIn or Instagram. I mean, TikTok is the hottest platform. That one I'm not
Yeah,
I'm not all in on, in terms of where I'm active, but that for some people that is working right now. I mean,
yeah,
literally, there's for example a chiropractor on TikTok who has blown up because he's showing videos of him adjusting his patients. So you can build your brand there. But I think
yeah.
obviously for getting back to like the kind of the right now the fundamentals in leveraging LinkedIn, for example, or Instagram is one, identifying like, hey, who am I? Like, again, it's little self-awareness, right? And like, what do I want my personal brand to be? And obviously it should reflect your authentic self, right? Number one. So starting with that in mind. And then two is like, well, what is your career focus, right? What are you trying to accomplish? What do you want to do? And then building out your brand that is speaking to the audience that you want, for if you're trying to get a job, right? Like, hey, this is the type of company I want to work for. These are the type, leaders I want to work for. So how do I, tailor my authentic personal brand to speak to those audiences, right? When building a brand. And I think really too is, I mean, honestly, man, is like, is this is that like, it's just start doing it, right? Like just start creating, online. I mean, don't overthink it at the end of the day.
No.
I mean, I definitely can say that, I didn't overthink it when I dove in. I didn't do any of it. I did zero until 2 years ago. And then I dove all in and just start doing. And it's amazing, man, what the kind of traction you can have. And in terms of, getting back kind of into the shoes of, hey, if I'm on the search for a new job, is like, okay, well, I'm going to build my brand. I'm going to start creating content on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and I'm going to start networking with these companies or these decision makers of ultimately who, I would want to work for, right? Or who I think I might right now.
Right. I was going to ask you, like, as a recruiter, do you guys look at LinkedIn profile?
1,000%, man. Thank you for that softball question. Yes. I mean, honestly, again, and I can only speak for myself, right? But I know, I mean, a lot of people nowadays is like, I think your social media and your online presence, your online brand, LinkedIn specifically is LinkedIn is kind of the go-to for any recruiter, any hiring manager, any decision maker, right? That they are going to meet. I mean, your resume, like I'm not a big believer in the traditional resume. We've talked about this before, right? And what LinkedIn Local was really the narrative of the theme was the resume of the future, which is your LinkedIn profile, right? So absolutely 100%. At a minimum, you should have your LinkedIn dialed in. I would start there, then go to Instagram, Facebook. They're going to look at, because you got to also keep in mind is what is like the age demographic of the decision makers, right? Of the companies you want to work for. Some of them are going to be more prone to check Facebook first, right? Or they're going to look at LinkedIn and Facebook only, not look at Instagram. And then maybe there's the demographic that's going to look at LinkedIn and Instagram, right? So you got to make sure you're consistent across all the major platforms right now.
Right. So other big thing I talk about in my content is, getting a job at least in United States, from my experience, is through networking and relationship building. That's the big part. Like it's who you know in the industry. How do someone build network? How do someone build a relationship?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and we'll focus heavily on LinkedIn because that's obviously where I have the most, I guess, knowledge in terms of all the major platforms. So if I was say in your shoes and looking to find a job, is what I would do is I would create first a little tracking system, right? Whether that's through in Google Docs, Google Drive, right? You want to have some form of system that you can track your efforts, at your output and efforts of what companies you'd like to work for, who are the decision makers within those companies, and then start, and then as you're reaching out to them, building that out, right? And so like, hey, connecting with them. Once you connect, send them a message, right? And then, hey, the one thing to keep in mind, especially for LinkedIn, is like there's a lot more people that use LinkedIn nowadays, right? There's a ton, it's huge. However, there is still a surprisingly large portion that don't use it in the day to day, right? So if I'm looking for a job and I connected with, say the senior VP of X, ABC company, right? And I was like, okay, now I sent them a LinkedIn message. Well, they didn't respond in 24 hours. Well, now that I'm a connection, what do I have access to on their contact, their email address? So then fire them off an email. And this goes back into like why you want to track this kind of stuff, right? Like, hey, this is the company, this is the contact. This is when I sent them a LinkedIn message. They didn't respond. So now I'm firing them off an email, right? So that's how you develop traction to create the dialogue, which the dialogue would then, hopefully lead to a relationship, right?
Somebody just asked, how do we know who's the decision maker?
Well, yeah, I think it starts with like, well, what do you want to do? Like, you want to do project management, right? So, I mean, it's pretty easy to go on to a company's LinkedIn page, then go to their employees and then search those keywords. So that's what I would do, right? Like if I was a recruiter in my world and I wanted to work as a recruiter for another company, I would search and who's their VP of recruiting, right? Or who's their director of recruitment, right? Then I would connect with them and I'd start the dialogue.
Right.
Great question. Whoever asked that. So thank you for asking. That was a really good question.
So other question is somebody asked, what do you look specifically on LinkedIn?
What do I look for?
Yeah. So for example, if you were to hire me, you go on my profile. Like, how do you find me first, and then when you found me, what do you look for in my profile?
Yeah, I mean, what initially, what I'm going to look for is this seems pretty kind of irrelevant to a degree, but it tells me kind of their general understanding of the LinkedIn platform is like, do they have a custom URL? Like, so that for me is like, okay, well, they understand a little bit of LinkedIn, so do they have a custom URL, or is it just the defaulted name, numbers, symbols?
Oh, wow, that is so cool. I never thought of that.
That's what I look for. I mean, that's just, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's still that uncommon. I'm like, it's 2020? How do people not know that they can create a custom URL and have that as part? Again, that's part of their personal brand. They can put that in their email signature. They can link it out in their Instagram to, like, hey, so they can cross pollinate, from Instagram to LinkedIn or whatever. So that's something I look for early on. Of course, the basics too is like, do they have a profile picture, right? I mean, that's, that is important. Like, we're talking about a personal brand. You should have a picture of a picture, B, it should be of you, right? Not of something random, right? So some of those basics. And then, obviously I want to look and see what, get a feel of, what their experience looks like. I'm not big on experience and, that kind of stuff, meaning having tons of experience when I'm looking to hire somebody, but I still want to see, like, what do they have a marketing background? Do they have a sales background? Do they have any recruiting? Right. And if they don't, that's not a deal breaker, but that's kind of from there what I look for.
Yeah. And I know that you say this a lot, character over talent. What do you mean by that?
Character triumphs talent, man. Period. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Can you explain that? What does that mean? How do recruiters find out a character? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you can get a good sense of that from the personal brand, right? So that's going back before you actually have like your first phone interview or your first Zoom interview. Is like, as a hiring manager, you can get a good sense based on somebody's online presence, the character of the individual, right? And so that really what it comes down to is actually I look for who are they as a human being first, right? Versus their skills and experience, et cetera, right? And I think that's just critically important. And like, there's obviously, key character traits that, as I'm going through that hiring process for someone to join my team they're non-negotiables, right? Like grit, drive, passion, inquisitiveness, right? Kindness, empathy. And so you can't, and to be fair, you can't learn all that through their online presence, but I mean, let's, not to, throw anyone under the bus, but it's pretty obvious. You can tell where someone's priorities are depending on what their Instagram page looks like. You can get a quick initial assessment. So it's helpful. It's helpful to qualify, and it's also helpful to disqualify people.
Yeah. Somebody asked how to add character in resume.
Yeah, well, you can. I mean, that's tough because I mean, the character isn't something that you can just put on the wall or on your resume, and it's just who you are. It's the core values that you believe in, and your actions ultimately, right? And so but I think to that question is like, for me, is like what immediately came to mind is, well, I can't really convey my character, or I could list out my traits if I want to, but it's like really like, well, what is your why? I would put that on my resume, right? Like is like what my why, what am I passionate about? And I think through that, it'll convey, not some of your values and character traits.
Yeah.
That's what came to mind.
Yeah, Shweta asked a really good question. She's asking, how do you judge someone during Skype interviews now that everything is online?
And so, I think that it's tough. It's better than a phone conversation because you get a little bit of human interaction. But it is difficult. Like, traditionally is that, I would never hire. I've done it many years ago, and I learned early on is I hired somebody was through a phone and through Skype interview without meeting them in person. This was probably 10 years ago. So a long time ago when I was real early in my career of actually hiring people to build a team. And it was a failure, right? Like, this was, you can get a good sense, but you can't really fully get a true feel for them and how they do in a social environment, right? Kind of scenario. So it's tough, but I mean it's definitely better. You can get a better sense than just through a phone conversation. So it is more helpful. It bridges the phone versus in person, right? But it is still not ideal, but from a hiring perspective.
Yeah, I love another question which just came in is so if I'm connecting with you, let's say you are the decision maker for your company, and I'm connecting with you on LinkedIn. What do I talk? Like, how do I talk without being so obvious that I am connecting for a job?
Well, why not be obvious about that? I mean, that's like, yeah, you can start with obviously. I mean, it goes back to through your content. Like, if you're creating content, you're building your brand, you're providing value before you're doing this, right? And you don't have to wait. So I want to be clear is that for people that are looking for jobs right now, I mean, they should go on the they should play offense. They should go attack and start connecting and sending messages. But honestly, I would just be straight up. I mean, if you're looking for a job and connecting, be like, hey, here's what I'm interested or what I like about your company or what I've seen online, and I would love to connect with you to discuss a potential opportunity to join your team, right? Like I would just go for it. Honestly, I mean, if it's me, that's what I would do. But that's also because I've built out a ton of brand and content, to my networking community. But again, I want to be clear on that is don't wait to build out a huge brand and all this content before. I mean, I would start doing that. I would connect today. So I'd just start doing it. And look at it this way is that you may have to connect with 40, 50 or companies, right? Or say you create hey, here's the 40 companies that I potentially, or I'd like to start a conversation to see what opportunities align with what I'm looking for. And then from that, you probably get, 15, 20 initial phone interviews, right? Then you narrow that down to maybe 2 or 3. Okay, now like these are the 2 or 3 I'm really interested in. I've had my second, third interview and just go through that process.
My audience, especially who has summer vacation and they have nothing to do, a lot of them they feel lazy and they don't feel like they are not motivated. What do they do at that time? Like, how do they be productive and efficient during this time?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's a tough time for everybody, right? There's at the end of the day, there's nobody to blame for what's happened to all of us, right? It's ultimately out of our control. But for me, and I'll get into more specific answer, but it's like starting with like, okay, well, we're all in this situation together, understanding that, and it's like, hey, a lot of this stuff is out of our control, right? And there's nothing we can do about that. However, what we can do, and it's like, dude, I literally tell myself this every day is like, there are things that I cannot control, but what I can control is my response to the situation, right? I can control how I literally show up every day, right? So I think being aware of that and not dwelling on the stuff that's out of our control, what's the point? It's useless, right? And I think that can kind of get, you more caught up in like, hey, I'm not feeling too motivated because there's all this stuff going on everywhere and so it's like control how you show up, control your response, because this is an event. And your response will ultimately determine your outcome, right? And so I think, and back to that, like, hey, if you're on the job hunt, great time, man. There's tons of downtime to really be networking, building that brand. If you're not looking for a job, you're just in summer transition, well, hey, even better, great time to build your brand. Like that's, what you should be doing. And if you can connect what the actions are that you need to do that's going to get you to where you want to go to like what you're passionate about, if you can connect the actions with that or what you're most interested and excited, it'll be easier to stay motivated. And that being said, myself included, is like it is, we all struggle with motivation, right? But to have that internal drive, those intrinsic motivators, it's easier, at least for me, when it's like I'm doing something or I want to accomplish something that I'm really fired up about, right? So if you can figure that out, it'll help.
Yeah. Last question before we end this. I strongly believe in hard work beats talent when talent is not working hard.
Yes.
What's your take on it?
Yeah, I think effort it counts twice, right? Like I think this is I'm taking some things out of the book Grit by Angela Duckworth, which I love her. She talks a ton about effort in there, and she's the one that said like, hey, effort counts twice, and what she means by that is like it takes effort and tremendous effort to develop a skill, right? And then so it's counting for the first time, but then you now have this skill. It takes effort to go do something and accomplish something with that skill, right? And so I think that is the way that she lays that out in her book. It just resonated so deeply with me. And is that like effort more than anything will determine how we do in the marathon of life, right? And it's like, and
Right.
so for me, it's like, like there's a lot of things, man, that that get me fired up. But one of the, things that I try to live by and embody is a mindset, a mentality of relentless effort, right? Because effort it'll beat talent every day. I mean, we all know from famous people, to people in our personal lives that we've been around, is like some of the most talented people that we've ever met, but they didn't have the work ethic to back it up, and they never really amounted to anything, right? And then it's the ones that are just the grinders that grind it out, and just go deep into the dirt that, ultimately accomplish something, significant, or something that's, whether it's significant to themselves or other people, but 100% talent, or excuse me, effort over talent all day long. Yeah. Good. Well, hey, man,
Awesome,
tremendous
Justin.
gratitude for you. I appreciate it, man. It's always great to connect and keep doing that. Keep up the good work, man. You're doing great things online, so keep it up.
Thank you. Thanks, Justin, for doing this.
Yeah, my pleasure.